work. Just wanted to walk through our today's agenda. We'll basically cover things that we covered this morning. Just walking through who we're trying to serve, a little about DAAA, and what fund and service categories that you can pursue for funding, and as well as our plan to transition to performance-based contracting. And then we'll walk through the application process. We just switched out the microphone. Can you all hear now? We're on Zoom. Can you respond? Can you all hear me now? Okay. We switched the microphone again. So hopefully we used this morning to hold it down for us. This is a little about the Detroit area agency for aging. For those who may not be familiar with our organization, DAAA is one of 16 area agencies on aging in Michigan that serve older adults. We serve the city of Detroit, Center, Copperwood, Middle Park, and the 5 Grosse Points. We've been in business for 42 years, started in 1980. Our vision and our mission is tied to the Diamond for the Time reports that were released over 20 years, which found that we have premature death in our area among older adults. So we changed our mission at that time to make sure that we focus on educating, advocating, and promoting healthy aging, and making sure that people have home and community-based services and long-term care that improve their quality of life. And with that vision, we just wanted to make a community that embrace everybody who needed services, particularly vulnerable. And our pillars are centered around service leadership, and that means that we want to make sure that we provide services to people, that the services are responsive to their needs. I will freeze. Can you all hear now?
It's still very hard to understand what you're saying, and it's very.
We'll try reconnecting. Is that what the vote is in the room? Can you all hear now? Can all of you hear?
We can hear you, but it's very muffled. Once you start talking, it goes into a muffle.
Okay, I have the microphone right in front of my mouth. Can you hear now? What we'll do, we'll do as best as we can, but we can also provide you with the recording from this morning session. Okay.
That would be great.
But we'll provide you with a recording. And I'll try to keep the mic as close as I can at hand. Let us know if you don't hear. We'll try to adjust things as much as possible. Technology.
It's not that we do not hear you. It's just what you're saying is very muffled.
Okay. Some of the funding that we have available include adult day services, caregiver education, training support, chore services. We have 3 services that Community Wellness Service Center should apply for. At a minimum, they can apply for other services as well. So that includes Community Service Navigator, Disease Prevention Health Promotion, Transportation Services. We also have counseling funding available for the first time, as well as elder abuse prevention, friendly reassurance, other services that you can apply for include home repair services. Those have been provided in many, many years, and that particular program will be funded through the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And then there's also homemaking, kinship support, legal assistance, outreach, personal care, respite care, and vision services. Our services are to serve overdose 60 years and over who live in our area or caregivers. But you'll also be expected to make referrals to My Choice Waiver, our My Health Link program, and other services along the continuum. Programs for all-inclusive care for the elderly, adult foster care, homes for the aged, some of those other programs that help people age in place. Some of the key things I want you to make sure you're aware of is the fact that we are transitioning to performance-based contracting, and as a part of this journey, we will be expecting providers to provide a grant budget that includes a line grant and fee-for-service. So for year one in 2023, you will be providing, we'll be providing 50% of your funding in a grant and 50% in fee-for-service that will be tied to performance indicators that will be tied to that funding. So please keep that in mind. And we will be providing training, as well as a 5-star rating system with incentive pay as a way to transition our traditional providers into that new performance-based contracting model.
Could you repeat those percentages again?
And during the upcoming fiscal year and planning cycle for the next 3 years, all the traditional providers who are applying for funding will have to sign a terms and conditions form that says they realize that we're transitioning to performance-based contracting, and that will include for year one, fiscal year 2023, you'll be 50% grant, 50% fee-for-service. And in year two, it'll go to 75% unit rate and 25% grant. And then for year three, you'll be 100% performance-based. Right now, we do have a network of direct purchase of service providers who are performance-based. They support the care management program as well as the My Choice program. But we are trying to transition our traditional providers to performance-based contracting. We did have a focus group to get input from providers and looked at best practices in other parts of the country. So this is our way of making sure that we leverage the limited dollars that we have and that we make the providers accountable to providing the services that they inserted to their contract. In terms of deadline, the proposals are due before by 11:59 on Wednesday, the August 24th, 2022, and we can't accept applications after that time. So we want to make sure that people are aware of that. You'll have to upload your proposals into the shared file, and Antoinette will go through that process soon, so you'll understand how to do that. In the grant application itself, there are 2 sections. And all of you should have an application and also the instructions for the request for proposals. And then on our website, we have a number of links for the Section 2 material as well as the cover sheet that's needed for Section 1. There's also some reference materials like the operating standards. If you want to look at the definitions and the requirements for a particular service category, you can find that information online. For the community wellness service centers, you have to look at the community service navigator definition, that's a regional definition as opposed to one developed by the state. So look at those materials to make sure that you're in alignment with what's required. For section 1, you'll need to include the base sheet for the agency profile, along with all the attachments that it requires of you, and the general cover sheet. If you need to add other pages to the general cover sheet, you can do that, but just label it as general cover sheet attachments or something. Remember that you have to sign any document, and the authorized official has to be the one who signs those documents. For section 1, you only have to provide an agency profile one time because we're trying to get information about your organization in terms of its capabilities, the board, how you operate, things like that. If you have the capacity to provide the service. For section 2, the focus is on getting information about the services that you're going to be rendering, as noted in your proposal. So you'll need to have a base sheet for each service category that you're applying for, which is in your application, as well as the service category funding request form for that particular service category. In addition to that, you have to attach a budget for each service that you are going to be applying for. So for one service number 1, you would put the space sheet that has the units and client numbers and information about their agency, the service category form sort of outlines how that service will be provided. Then you'll attach the specialized line item budget, as well as the unit cost fee-for-service budget as well for that particular service, service A, or number 1. For service 2, you'll have to do a separate set of documents for that particular second service. And it'll have the base sheet, the service categories you're applying for, the budget, and the fee-for-service. Those budgets should add up to the grant amount that you're asking for. Plus, you have to make sure that there's sufficient local match and program income put into those budgets. And anything has to be signed by your by the authorizing official. With the budget, if you are a new provider, you've never rendered services to DAAA, you're held to a 10% local match and then a 5% program income in your budget. If you have previously been providing services, you have to do a 15% local match at minimum and a 5% program income. But your grant requested amount should be the same for the line item budget as well as for your fee-for-service. The contract period for this request for proposal is for FY 2023 to FY 2025. Fiscal year 2023 starts October 1 through September 30th, 2023. And then you have the next year and the following year. When we accept a request for proposal, a grant proposal during our RFP process, we fund it for 3 years. However, the first year you have to provide all the details and all the documents that we're asking for now. And then in subsequent years, if you are in compliance with your contractual obligations, we'll just ask you for an updated scope of work, your goals for the year, or KPIs, your key performance indicators, and then your budget. So we'll continue to provide that funding if you're in compliance. But of course, funding is based upon the availability of those dollars from the federal and state government. In terms of proposal requirements, applications must be typed, handwritten ones won't be accepted. Scanned documents have to be clear and legible. The authorized official has to sign in all the required places. The proposal must address service categories that we have in our request for proposal. You can't say, well, we want to provide swimming classes for seniors. You know, that's not in our RFP, unless it's something that is provided through, say, your wellness center, and that would be under that umbrella. There's a checklist that all of you should have, and I would make sure that I would go through that checklist to make sure you have, number one, meet all the requirements for even applying for funding. And then number two, making sure that you have all the attachments and documents that are required to submit. And that checklist has to be submitted with your grant proposal. And then, of course, there's a scoring sheet that is used by our reviewers, and that we've provided that to you so you can see where the weights are as you write your proposal. Make sure that you label all of your attachments so we know what goes with what. The easier you make it for the reviewer, the better it is for you. And then make sure that you complete the budget. Because if we don't have a completed budget or a unit cost fee for service form, that's not very helpful, and that can delay things or make you not eligible. In terms of compliance, just make sure that you're targeting services that are to be rendered in the AAA service area. We have a sister agency that serves the other parts of Wayne County, outside the 9 communities that we serve. So make sure you have the proper zip code, the proper cities, or you'll say planning service area 1A. Make sure that you can be in compliance with the contract requirements. There is a business associate agreement that all providers will have to sign, for example. Know that if you become a awarded vendor, that you have to attend AAA meetings and events. If there's monthly programming, financial reporting, and NABIS in some cases, depending on the service that you're requesting to be funded for over the next 3 years. And that you also have to honor HIPAA and Privacy Act and other state and local requirements, and that you should give AAA credit. Use our logo when you are promoting the programs we fund. 3 key things that I keep emphasizing. You have to be in business as an organization at least 3 years. You have to be financially viable with a positive fund balance or retained earnings. And then you also have to be current on your taxes. Or if you're not current, you have to have something from the IRS that knows what that plan is to get current. And as indicated before, make sure that you look at the pre-screening checklist and make sure you have that attached to your application, that you have everything included. Those are the key things that I wanted to go over. I wanted to bring Aquanetta up so she can sort of walk through the sheer file. And then I'll have Aida and Gil to come up. Aquanetta needs to something go over earlier. Any questions so far? You can state your name and your question, organization question. We will be posting responses to questions that come up.
I think that's the whole thing. Director of Annandale Chambers Multi-Service Center, which is a program for adult seniors, ABC adult daycare. My question is, do you have to have revenue a certain amount before you can apply for the grant?
No, we don't specify you should have a certain level of funding. I mean, it's revenue. You just have to be financially viable and capable of providing services. Current on taxes. There's also, in the document that you have, there's a roster of requirements that you need to be aware of. And it's called pre-screening and eligibility checklist. So as you prepare the proposal, make sure that your organization meets these requirements, that this is for at least 3 years, that you have the financial records that show that you're financially viable and that you're current on your taxes. And then you have to make sure that you're not debarred, your organization's not debarred, there's no one who's employed by you who's debarred from providing services, through Medicare or Medicaid or other resources. Because we'll be screening on a monthly basis to make sure people are not debarred, because we cannot allow vendors to do business if they are debarred from even providing services. There's ADA standards if people actually come to your facility. There's liability insurance that has to be in order, paid, auto, liability, etc. You, of course, have to do some kind of client satisfaction surveys to look at what people are saying in terms of how you're delivering services, and also some in-service training for your staff. Then there's HIPAA compliance and ADA compliance, civil rights compliance, and all of those kinds of things. So make sure you go through all of those things to make sure you're in compliance. And those are the things that will be requested of you so we can see if you are indeed in compliance with those things. And then the checklist for application submissions, that outlines all of the things that should be in your proposal. Make sure that all of those things are in place and label them so that we know what's what when we go through the proposal. Any other questions?
Yeah, what are the required programs you must provide?
Pardon me?
I just said, what are the required programs we must provide?
Well, that's up to the applicant. In the request for proposal, you go to the Detroit Area Agency on Aging homepage, and you look at the request for proposal forms. You'll see all the services that you can apply for. And they're services that appear in our multi-year plan, our 3-year plan. So also, if you go to the instructions, you'll also see the services that can be performed. But specifically, we are looking for, I'll go back to the list. In this request for proposal, we are looking for adult day services, caregiver education, training, and support, chore services, community wellness service center services, and those include 3 specific services that wellness centers have to provide in addition to others that they may apply for. And that's community service navigator, disease prevention, health promotion, and transportation. Then you have counseling, elder abuse prevention, friendly reassurance, which is like telephone reassurance, home repair services, homemaking, kinship support, legal assistance, which is a mandated service, outreach, personal care, harassment care, and vision services. Those are the services that people can apply for on behalf of their organization. Anything in the chat or any other questions? Now we'll bring up Aquanetta.
I have a question.
Okay.
There are a few things on the RFP that I received that has like transportation and vision, some of the things that are not on your list, but can we apply for multiple items?
Yes, you can apply for multiple services. However, as indicated earlier, for each service that you apply for, you have to submit a separate section 2.
And yeah, I got it.
Okay, yes, you can apply for multiple services.
Is this reimbursable? I'm sorry, I was just kind of muffled, so I wasn't understanding if it was reimbursable or do we have to float any of this?
Typically what happens with our traditional providers is that once you are awarded funds, we advance 1/12 of the grant so you can get started. And then after that, you're generally getting 1/12 of that grant each month. However, since we're transitioning to performance-based contracting, we will be looking at advancing a portion of that grant funding for each month, but then we'll also look at what you have projected to do for that month that's tied to performance-based contracting. And then, so we'll take that into consideration as we're reimbursing you. One thing that we've talked about is moving through a quarter and then doing a look back. We may approach it that way, or we may just look at it monthly. That's what we're looking at right now. So there typically is an advance that you get to flow so you can get going. And answer your question.
Okay, thank you. Does any of this have an admin attachment to it or percentage for admin costs?
Yes, you can provide some admin dollars. I think we try to keep it lower than 20%. No more than 20% of your budget.
Okay, thank you.
But we look at that very carefully because we want to focus on program operations. We don't want the budget to be top heavy with administration costs.
Understandable, thank you.
Aquanetta will walk through how to upload your proposal into the shared file. And remember, if you have questions, you'll need to contact us at contractmtg@DAAA1A.org. There you can share questions that you have, and then we'll post questions on our website under the request for proposal under frequently asked questions. Aquanetta?
And before, can you hear me? This is Linda Altavilla from the Helm. Each of these categories that we apply for as a community wellness service center, are we supposed to divide each of those between the grant portion and the fee-for-service program?
Basically, what you'll be doing is, as you look at those three service categories that you're asking for funding for, if you want X number, you're asking for X number of dollars, develop the grant proposal or the budget asking for that particular amount for your 100% for your line item budget, 100% for your unit cost fee-for-service budget. We will internally look at what that request looks like and decide on what will be performance-based and what will be line item grants. And typically, we will be tying key performance indicators to the fee-for-service dollars.
That makes great sense, especially in something, for instance, with transportation. Very easy to track usage and fee for service. Perhaps not so much for Navigator, for example.
Well, that's why in your proposal you'll outline what your community service navigator activities look like. And then we'll take a look at, because you might look at, for example, the number of intakes that you're doing or new clients that you're bringing into your wellness centers. You might look at client satisfaction levels. You may want to look at completion of evidence-based programs. So the number of evidence-based programs or other activities that you're proposing. So if you outline what that looks like, then we'll take a look at what those KPIs look like and tie that to payment.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll get started with the shared file.
Hi, I'm Antoinette Jones. I'm working with the contract management team to upload and review the RFP document. So if you are interested in applying for this RFP, what we are asking is that you have to request access to the shared file portal. by contacting the contract management mailbox. You have until April 24th at 5 p.m.
August.
August 24th, right?
Yes.
August 24th at 5 p.m. to request access to the shared file portal. I'm gonna say that again. You have until August 24th at 5 p.m. to request access. So once you request access, you will receive an email giving you the link to the shared file portal and also your login and password. Once you click that link, you're gonna go to the page that's on your screen. So you wanna sign in. So I have multiple folders, but when you sign in, you're gonna go to the 2023-2025 NYP RFP. Within this folder, you're going to locate your agency folder. Your agency folder will have the name of your agency. So I'm going to use the Habitat for Humanity as an example. So we're going to say this is your agency and you're ready to start uploading your RFP document. So you're going to click to open up your folder. Once you click to open up your folder, you're going to go over to the plus sign. Sometimes the plus sign is blue and sometimes it's purple, but that's okay. You want to hit upload. Once you hit upload, we're going to ask that you find the document that you would like to upload. So you hit browse, because now you would like to find them in your computer. So what we are asking is that you already have the documents saved in your computer. And we're asking that you have them saved under a clear and concise name. So once you upload them and we go to review it, we'll know exactly what we're reviewing. Because we'll also be using a checklist and we'll be comparing the checklist to what's been uploaded. And if we can't decipher, so if you just got document 1 or document 2 and have it named the document, it's going to take us longer to review. And I don't want us to decline the proposal because we can't find a particular document. Okay? So once you're ready to upload your document, you just select the document. And I'm going to just use this as an example. You hit open. Once your document displays, you hit upload. Okay? So now your document has been uploaded. Now we're ready to upload another document. So you just repeat the process. You go back over to the plus sign. It's going to turn into an X. It's going to either be blue or purple. Hit upload, find your document, select your document, hit open, hit upload, and your document has been uploaded. And what I should know as well is going to hit the person that uploaded the document and the time the document has been uploaded. Now, I like this feature because it helps me stay on track as to what I'm doing, because when you're doing a lot of these, you can kind of be confused as to what you have uploaded and what you haven't. So you can know, as you can see the person that uploaded, which is A. Jones, which is myself, and the time that I uploaded those documents, which is at 2:12 p.m. Okay? And so as you are uploading your documents, you will be able to see the documents, the time, the person that did it, and you just keep uploading all of your documents until you have completed the process. Okay? Do we have any questions? Yes, ma'am. No, so the question is, when you upload your documents, is it a submit button to let you know that all your documents are submitted? The question is, when you hit upload and you see it there, it happens in real time. So as you upload, each document is uploaded, so there is no submit button, because once again, it's uploading in real time.
Okay, so our last document, you guys know, like on that document, you see it.
Right, this is the, final page. Mhm. Right, and that's part of the naming, so you want to make sure that everything is named clearly and concisely. Okay. And so what she asked, she just wanted to know her last document. Should she name her last document a particular name so that we know that she's finished? And I just answered saying that that's why we ask that you name your documents clearly and concisely so we'll know. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Okay.
Could you note your name and your question on the mic with the microphone so everyone can hear? Thanks.
Yes, hi, I'm Vanessa Holsey, Annandale Chambers Multi-Service Center. My question is, right, okay, so I did hear something about 5 o'clock, and then I know that the actual application has to be submitted by 11:59 on the 24th. So what is supposed to be submitted by 5?
So every person that's submitting documents or who's applying to the RFP, they have to get access to the share file portal. So we're asking that you request access to the portal by 5 p.m. on August the 24th. But you have until 11:59 August the 24th to submit / upload your documents to the portal. That makes sense? Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Antonella. We're trying to save Antonella from getting whiplash from providing shared files right at the last minute, all night, to midnight. Now we'll have Aida to come up and talk about the Community Wellness Service Centers and the requirements for evidence-based programs. And then Gil will speak to congregate meal site designation.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm going to do this sitting down this time. So when it comes to our disease prevention and health promotion portion, this is one of the, if you are planning to become a community health service center, this is one of those minimum requirements. But let me tell you, it takes a lot of work to kind of get your center in the status that we need it to be. And the reason I say that is because what we're using for these health and wellness dollars is Title D funding, Title 3D funding, Title 3B and E funding. And so all of these fundings have different criteria, and I will talk about what's up there right now, which is the slide before. Yes, thank you. These are Title D3 funding programs that are eligible for that funding in Michigan. And so as you can see, these are the current programs we have across our 4 current community wellness service centers, and part of them are also done by DAAA staff members. But you can see that exercise classes and fall prevention are probably our most popular classes. 3 out of those 5 are last anywhere from 8 to 18 weeks, and they are not continuous. Enhanced fitness and Tai Chi for arthritis tend to be continuous classes that you have 2 to 3 times a week on an ongoing basis. Our chronic disease management and our diabetes and caregiver education, these are classes that you have anywhere from 6 to, I believe, some of them are 12 sessions, so 6 to 12 weeks, and every single session that you need to have new participants. So when it comes to these programs, they are all evidence-based programs, meaning that if I take a matter of balance class at one center, I should have the exact same experience taking it in anywhere across the country, anywhere across the world, and in even a senior center down the road. So evidence-based means that all these programs are, you have to get certified and trained in, and then you have to maintain fidelity and keep the program consistent across. So that again, if you and your mother or you and your sister take this class at different locations, you have the exact same experience. And so they have been tested and proven to help. And so when it comes to our, the definition of the service for disease prevention and health promotion is any service program that provides information and that supports older individuals with the intent of assisting them in avoiding illness and improving their health status. So one of the most important things in order to keep our seniors at home is to have them stay healthy. So that's kind of what these programs have been proven to do. There are Title E funding, which is our caregiver program. So a lot of our, what is this, the number that I just read, I was 80 to 90% of the care that older adults are receiving that are living with disabilities are provided by family caregivers. So DAAA has really taken a huge stance on making sure that we're addressing our caregivers. And so a lot of our programs are specific just to caregiving and how to stay afloat while you're taking care of your loved ones. The Title B funding, these can be used to provide other evidence-informed or effective programs, activities that seniors love. So your dance classes that seniors love, we know they're keeping them active and seniors have a lot of fun socializing. It's kind of combining every single little aspect of staying healthy in one class. Those are not evidence-based, but they are very important and they're very popular programs. So those are Title B funding. So when you become a community wellness service center, you have to provide all three of those, the caregiving, the evidence-based programs, and your Title B. So if you are considering this, know, what's the next slide? That for the evidence-based programs, well, it's hard to find people to do any of these programs, but it's very specific for evidence-based programs. What you do need to do is identify staff or volunteers that will be trained in each specific program. And we ask that you train at least 2 to 3 people per site because each of one of these evidence-based programs requires, I think there's only 2 on that list that just are okay with 1 facilitator. Every other program has 2 facilitators per workshop. So that's why we ask that you have at least 2 to 3 people in mind to have trained for each program. We do have, our DAAA has a volunteer pool, which has dwindled down since COVID. So we are definitely looking to have more people trained in those programs. A lot of those evidence-based program trainings can be done in-house by myself and we have a few other master trainers in most of these programs, so you don't have to go out of state or out of, to get that training. We could provide a majority of that training in-house. And once your staff members are trained, they have to continue their certification. And for some of these programs, it means doing at least 1 workshop a year to maintain that certification. The hardest thing is finding those people who will consistently stay on broad, because what we can't do is we can't have a training every 3 months to keep training new people. So it's finding those staff members or those volunteers that are going to be there long term. Your budget for the health and wellness disease promotion does have to include these evidence-based trainings and supplies. Every single evidence-based program has some type of either a workbook that you give out to your participant or a CD, or it's something related to that program that helps guide them through the process and then allows them to continue working on that once they leave your workshop. So that does have to be in your budget. Once you become a community wellness service center, you will have to provide a schedule for the upcoming fiscal year. So it's not about, oh, we'll do 2 this year. I need to know when and where and in what capacity you plan to provide that in. Will it be in person? Will it be virtual? And then when we're speaking for virtual, usually we do them in Zoom. When it comes to in-person classes, you have to have a space that can hold at least 10 people plus the facilitators, that you can have comfortable chairs and tables for them. The room has to be private with doors so that you're not in the middle of, you know, your gym while people are playing basketball, you have a class going on. So you do need to make sure that you have the space to hold these private, what we call closed workshops. They're not just walk-in basis. You know, we allow people to register and then walk in up to the second workshop. After that, it becomes a closed private program. Let's see. So you have to come up with a schedule. We do have performance targets and benchmarks, and this is where that fee-for-service will come in. So you may look at those classes and say, like, okay, great, I can do one of those 5 times. We need you to provide a broad range of these programs. I think there's 13 listed on there, and I want to say that a majority of our current wellness centers are providing at least 80% of those programs. Sometimes a program just doesn't work for your wellness center, and that's fine. And there are plenty of other evidence-based programs that are covered under Tier 1. But those are currently the ones that are being offered. And so we do ask that you are providing at least 8 different evidence-based classes through our fiscal year. That was the plan in the last few years. That number might change, Anne, probably. And so what that means is something like Enhanced Fitness, you may be doing it 3 times a week, and you do it for the whole year. That's considered one evidence-based program, right? Now, you can do a Matter of Balance, and that takes 8 weeks, and that's also considered another evidence-based program. So they're very different workshops. Your Enhanced Fitness, once you fill up a class, you're no longer recruiting for it. Where it comes to a Matter of Balance is you have to recruit 8 to 10 new people every single workshop to take these programs. The electronic data collection is something that we just started last fiscal year. So the state of Michigan is asking us to collect electronic surveys. So it is a link that you share with your participant, either virtually or in person. What we are doing right now is we have little Samsung tablets like the one you see right up there. And seniors go in there and they get their own ID. They fill out this pre-survey and information on themselves, and they do that at the very beginning of the workshop and at the very end. And for those ongoing classes, those are done, they're going to be done, they're starting this quarter, every quarter. So there are certain classes that have like 30 people in them 3 times a week. So some of that data collection is difficult to obtain, and it does take a lot of work. But it is something we must do in order to continue getting these grants. We need, when you become a community wellness service center, you become exclusive, but we meet quarterly to discuss all the programming that you have done in that past quarter, to kind of look at those performance targets and to see what benchmarks have been hit and which ones are still lacking for the fiscal year. And the last point again is we want to make sure that you are prepared to provide these classes in person and virtually if necessary. If monkeypox takes over and we have a shutdown, God forbid, we need to be able to continue providing these services for seniors. And let me tell you, when COVID started in 2020, we did not do a single virtual workshop at that time. That was unheard of, because these are workshops that were being done to give seniors the ability to learn and stay healthy, but also to socialize. So being virtual was like, absolutely not. And that took away a lot of our homebound seniors from being able to participate. And so, not to say that a lot of great things came out of COVID, but there are some positives that have come out of it, including providing these virtual programs now. And, you know, it took some months, and it took some working with each one of those developers of every single one of those programs, which, by the way, they're all different developers across the nation, different universities and private, you know, for-profits and nonprofits, but they all made it work. And now we have the ability to provide these programs to our homebound seniors, and that's kind of, we don't see that going away. A lot of our centers have continued to just provide in-person, and that's caused a lot of issues because once the center closes down, even for 2-3 weeks or 2 months, you're losing a lot of precious time there. So, I think that's it when it comes to the evidence-based programs. Any questions? Yes.
I'm Eleanor Johnson. I got it over here.
Got one?
Yeah.
I'm Eleanor Johnson from Dance Artery. And could you go back over those categories for Title
3B, C, and E.
Yes. And my other concern is people who've been marginalized, which I found in being a facilitator of some of the wellness programs, that 8 weeks at a time is not enough to keep people engaged. So we've done 32 weeks. So if we had a program that was ongoing, say we did 42 weeks out of the year, with other activities included, but just say just the fitness part, where we have people engaged daily. You know, some people come 2 days, some people maybe come 1 day, some people come 3 days. How would I decipher that in terms of under the allotted fitness, the allotted funding, and also what about other evidence-based programs? Because we've also noticed that some of the being a little more creative is reaching people who aren't normally active.
I'm going to use Citrice here, who runs this St. Patrick Senior Center and is one of our current wellness service centers. Citrice, how many dance classes do you currently have? Way too many to even count. But her dance classes tend to be very, very popular programs and get people in the door. And that's great. She 10 different 10 different types of dance classes. And so we understand that at every single center, there are those programs that really bring people in. And that's kind of your, what's the term I'm looking for? Carrot. Bread and butter. Bread and butter, or your carrot. Okay, or your carrot, right? That you're like, great, come in. We have these great dance classes. We have congregate meals. I mean, these centers are full of things. Most seniors are not going to walk in there and be like, my gosh, can't wait to learn about diabetes. You know, we know that. We absolutely know that. Unfortunately, most of that grant funding is used for that very purpose, is that you want these seniors to have a great time, you want them to be engaged, you want them to keep coming back, and you're absolutely right, 6 weeks is nothing. Seniors will walk in the door, by maybe session 3, they're like, okay, I see, and then they're like in session 6, and they're like, I'm just getting into this and it's done. So we know that. Unfortunately, most evidence-based programs, the reason that they're proven like that is because they've been studied in those short-term intervals. Diabetes prevention program, which is, believe it or not, a year-long program. I've done this once for 1 year with a group of, I think I started with 16 seniors, and at the end I was down to 11. I still have people calling me 4 years later to say, do you know how much this has helped me? I just experienced this. I went back and I used the information I learned with you, during that year. And I can see, How many people call me after my 6 weeks? Definitely not as many. So we know that. Unfortunately, this is why we have different types of funding, so you can still have your 10 dance classes, and we know the seniors are active, but you have to get them in here too. So Enhanced Fitness, Lori here is at NSO, and at one time, they had over 60 seniors coming in 30 or 3 times a week, every single week. It was in 2 different sessions. With I think 30 minutes in between for cleanup and so one class can leave and the other can come back. So Enhanced Fitness has been proven, but tell me why it's so difficult to find instructors for this program now and to get people re-engaged after COVID. A lot of our instructors are scared to go back in person to provide these classes. So we do have a lot of programming that kind of combines the two of what you're talking about, ongoing and keeping that senior active. But then we have our, so we really do work with you in letting you provide a vast, different selection. And all over the centers tend to be, like I would call them the Holy Grail, right? Like they have everything, right? Other centers have one dance class, like Lissa, I believe, has Zumba, and they have, that's their one dance class. And then they have yoga, they have Tai Chi. So every center is very different, and you have to know your audience. Does that help?
And the answer to your question, we are looking at ways to provide services and broader than community wellness service centers. And so stay tuned. We do have some American Rescue Plan dollars, and we are looking at implementing some innovative initiatives called Silver Lining Cafe, looking at different types of nutrition programs, different types of wellness programs. So we are looking at other ways to get some additional funding out there in some non-traditional ways that have a little more flexibility. But under this RFP, the Title III-D funding is targeted for those evidence-based programs. But you have, as I even noted, you have more flexibility with the Title III-B social service dollars under the Older Americans Act. And you also have, of course, the Title III-E funds that support caregiver types of programs. So we try to take these limited resources and make sure that we can provide the best services in the most cost-effective way to meet the needs of seniors. Now, on the website, there is a document called, it says evidence-based programs or MDHHS handbook. There you can see all those evidence-based programs, and it describes what you have to do in terms of certification, the length of the class, things like that. And so it's many more than what.
Yes, Linda just from the Helm asked, there's a large, and I never counted how many programs. I know that there are 13 up here, but these are the 13 that we currently have going. There are, I want to say, over 50 different evidence-based programs that are considered Tier 1, and so any of those programs can be used. So you may look at this and be like, oh, everybody else is doing it, I want to start my own, and that's great. Linda's other question was about licensing and training costs, and I mentioned this. Training costs are going to be in your budget. So licensing costs, that is kind of, that's an iffy question, because let's say that I have 3 centers that are interested in providing a new program, and that licensing fee for one center is $3,000, but if we get it under DAAA, I can cover all 3 centers for that much. So there's different licensing. Some programs don't even have a licensing fee, but we are going to work with you. So like I said, if this is a program that we can become that umbrella license and you work under us. Like Enhanced Fitness, we pay a licensing fee at DAAA. We pay a fee for me to be able to do data entry, and then I pay $50 per site. So we had 14 sites at one time, so we would just pay $50. Now, had you just taken that license on your own, now you're covering all of that cost. So I can't answer that question with 100% because we have to look at how that fits into our budget as well. But if there are multiple people interested in that workshop, and we just did a survey on this for our current wellness centers, we are willing to take on those licensing under DAAA as an umbrella and offer it to all the wellness centers. Just depends on the program. But training costs, please make sure that you know those are going in your budget. Just because you may have a center who trains 4 people or 3 people, and those 3 people stay on board for the next 4 years. And you're like, great, we trained them, we're good. There are certain centers that will keep training people over and over because they tend to leave or they don't stick around. And so it's just not fair to be able to cover that cost for everybody at all times. That's why I make sure to say, please make sure that you have staff that you know that's going to stick around. And when it comes to volunteers, there really is, it's very hard to truly find volunteers during this time. Gas prices are insane, so if they're driving somewhere to hold these classes, there will be some kind of cost associated with any volunteer. So just know that as well. Not that volunteers haven't worked, they've worked great in the past. It's just very difficult now during these times.
Thank you, Aida. Now we'll have Gil to come forward, and we'll take any additional questions about Congress Hill site.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gilbert Lopez. I'm the Director of Nutrition Services for DAAA. One of the things that we have at our community wellness service centers is the congregate meal program. If you're not familiar with congregate meals, it's exactly what it sounds like. Individuals coming into a facility, sitting down in a congregate setting and having a meal with their peers. So that's the main idea. We're trying to get folks out of their homes and participating in this meal program. And one of the things that we like to do is make sure that all the activities that Aida just went over are kind of based around the meal, either before, after, or just to get those folks in the door. Sometimes it's the meal that brings them in the door, sometimes it's the evidence-based program that brings them in. So we want to make sure that that's something that's being offered as well. And to be a congregate meal program, there are some things that are required. Can we just the next slide version of that? So a couple of things that you'll have to have. And before we were to do this and provide meals, myself and at least one other person would come out and inspect the facility to make sure that all these things are available. There's more than this, but this is just the main points. You have to have a certificate of occupancy. You also have to have a certificate of handicap accessibility. You have to have been inspected by the fire department or the fire marshal. The kitchen, to make sure that your facilities work correctly. Additionally, you have to have $1 million in general liability insurance with DAAA as an added insured party. You also have to have a current food service license. I know with the city of Detroit and with Wayne County, sometimes that food service license is about 4 months old. So I get that happens pretty often, but you have to have one as up to date as possible. See, building conditions, you want to make it, you want it to be as bright as possible. Clean, obviously, the kitchen has to be clean. There has to be a restroom nearby for individuals to utilize, as well as the kitchen has to have a hand sink inside the kitchen itself. The restrooms have to be accessible with a self-closing door. And then lastly, you have to have enough tables and chairs for at least 25 individuals. That's the minimum that DAAA requires for a congregate meal site. Now, sometimes they'll dip below that number, and that's understandable, but to really get a program off the ground, you want to have at least 25 coming on a regular basis. Any questions at all? Yes.
Yes. Hi.
I think the individual needs to note their name and their question, and then we'll take someone on the Zoom call.
Hi, Vanessa Holsey.
Jacqueline Ford Brazo.
I think we need to mute.
Hello?
Vanessa Holsey.
I was, asking
About, is this just for the community wellness program, or could it be for the adult daycare?
So we do have 23 congregate sites throughout our service area. So I guess the answer would be no. It doesn't have to be for a community wellness service center. We have others, but I will say this, we've only opened one in the last 7 years. So it's a lot about funding and having that available funding to be able to do so. But as far as community wellness service centers are concerned, this is a function of that.
Just want to add that we do have adult day centers that we have funded, that we provide, meals through our Hunger Meals program. For example, one example was People's Community Services, that was located on NIST. They were adult daycare center, but they also were a Hunger Meal site. So if there are sites that we open and fund, we can look at that, because that's a key service that will be needed. Now, one thing that we're doing now is we are making priority some of the underserved areas that don't have any services. So Highland Park, Camp Transit, Harbor Woods, that's a high priority right now. And then we also have a wait list for Hunger Meal sites. We have had our planner to look at where our population has shifted with the 2020 census, and then we looked at where our current sites are, and then where the gaps are. So we'll be looking at those areas that are covered to see if there's something we can do. And Gil has been working on some innovative strategies around some other modernizations that we're trying to do our Hunger Meal sites. So we'll be having dialogue about that, and we're trying to get those resources out there as well. Stay tuned.
I don't want to say too much, but yeah, they got some neat things coming along. If I'm hoping we can get them off the ground really quickly. But I know we had a question online.
Jacqueline Ford Brazo. Yes, I have a question. We missed the 10 o'clock session this morning. Has that been recorded where we can have access to that recording, or do you have pamphlets or documents for this morning's session?
Well, we basically covered the same thing during this session that we covered in the morning. So we'll make sure that we put that online. And we also, on our website, have the request for proposal instructions, the application, all the forms needed, as well as resource and reference materials. So go to DetroitSeniorSolution.org, and then you'll see https://www.detroitseniorSolution.org. Kashara is going to put it in the chat. Okay. And you can go to our website, and you'll see the request for proposal and all the materials you need to submit a proposal. And we'll put the recording on the website, as well as any questions that have come up. We will be summarizing responses and putting those under frequently asked questions as they come in. So everyone will have access to that information. Thank you for your question. You're welcome.
You know what, real quick, I just want to mention for those of you who aren't community wellness service centers yet, we provide meals 5 days a week through Trio Community Foods. Right now, sometimes it's box lunches if folks want box lunches, but we really try to recommend that folks do hot meals 5 days a week. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's really what we try to do. And then there's other entities like St. Pat, they provide their own meals. So just wanted to mention that. Yes.
I'm Eleanor from Dan Diary. What if the meal isn't totally hot? If it's nutritious, raw meal with maybe some additional hot food along with it. So it could be like 3 or 4 salads, a medley of salads.
So what we're required to have is that the meal itself has to meet 1/3 the DRIs. So if you have that and you have it, you have nutritionals for it that you can provide, that's something we would look at and be able to take a look at. So yes, if you're saying you're providing your own meals, that would be something we'd have to look at.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, what is your partner with the farm or you're partnering with the food person?
That's fine, if you're doing something like that, but if you're going to provide a meal, you're required to provide us with your menus. We look for a six-week cycle menu. Like I said, those were just the major things. There are other smaller things that would have to be required too.
Yeah, like the food certificate will give us, like, what requirements they're meeting in the food and how much.
They would have to be able to provide us with a 6-week cycle and then give us the nutritionals for that. And they're required to follow that menu as closely as possible. I mean, we understand that there's going to be, with all the issues with supply chain management that's going on right now, things are going to be changed in and out, but for the most part, you want to stick to that menu as much as possible.
Whatever we give,
Whatever you give us, yes, thank you. Yep.
I want to point out that on our website, we have operating standards for service programs. Make sure you go and check that out so that you're aware of the requirements for each service category, because it'll spell out some of the things that Gil and Aida were covering, as well as myself. And you'll be meeting those requirements because you'll be aware of what those are. I think there's some additional questions in the chat, I think.
It was from the helm. I'll email her later.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate you all coming today. Just a reminder that the applications are due on Wednesday, August 24th by 11:59 EST. Is there another question?
midnight or after?
Before midnight. Like Cinderella. Before midnight.
Yeah, like, I'm.
Oh, no.
Yeah, meeting it by noon.
It's due by 11:59 PM. Midnight will be AM.
Oh, I see, okay.
1 minute before
1 minute
before midnight. Now, if you want your shared file, ask for it now. We'll be providing that shared file up until 5 o'clock the day that the proposal is due.
We have a question in the chat.
Okay, another question in the chat.
From Monica.
Hi.
Monica, would you like-
Yes, hi. This is Monica Wisgard of Help at Home. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So, like a former person said just before, I believe I should have been on the earlier Zoom because we are not a community wellness center. We would be potentially applying for the all service categories parts for respite, homemaker, personal care, and chore. And my question is, in that case, outside of the community wellness centers context, how many providers are generally awarded for each service type? And is there a way to know how many clients or units per service type there are available, just to understand the scope of this opportunity?
Well, one thing I would like to point out is that varies from cycle to cycle in terms of our request for proposals. However, with our traditional request for proposal for aging services, we are looking for community-based organizations. It could be a for-profit, it could be a municipal department, it could be a nonprofit that meets our requirements, but we are looking for an organization who will find the clients. Unlike the direct purchase of service side of our business, where we provide the clients or participants for the organizations or the vendors, with the traditional aging services part of our business, we are looking for organizations who can propose to provide a given service, market that service in their targeted area that they're going to serve, find the clients who will come and partake, and benefit from those services. So on the aging services side of the business, we're looking for someone who's going to generate interest in those services
and then provide the services to those participants. Unlike on our direct purchase service side, which supports the care management program and our My Choice waiver and My Health Link. Now, everything that I covered this morning was covered this afternoon. If you have questions about respite care, short services, or homemaking, please share any questions. We can get them answered.
Great. So
We
just
covered
to,
everything.
I'm sorry.
We're covering everything this morning. Everything we covered this morning, we're covering this afternoon, but we focused on the Community Wellness Service Center activities.
Great. I just wanted to ensure that the context was correct and that there wasn't anything specific in the first session that maybe wasn't stated in this one or vice versa. I did see some community wellness center specific things like the evidence-based, which I think would be different for agencies providing just respite, homemaker, chore, and personal care. So thank you for that answer. And essentially for my follow-up question of how many clients or units by service type, we can assume that there are none and the responsibility would be on the provider or providers, multiple, to find those. So in general, you look for more than one provider and that those providers need to do marketing and outreach to find those clients. And that would be incorporated in the budgeting as well, the costs associated.
But one thing I do want to share, the Detroit Area Agency on Aging has an information call center. And we get calls through our agency where clients need short services or respite care or homemaking. When those calls come in, we'll do an intake and screen individuals, and if we find that they are eligible, we will make referrals to our providers. So that will be one source of your getting participants, but there's also an expectation that with any of the services that you are applying for through this RFP, that you will have a marketing and outreach strategy in place that will allow you to market your services to the community, to caregivers, older adults, and other target populations. But you will be getting referrals not only from our agency, you may be getting some from United Way 211, a variety of different other providers out there. And I guess one thing that you have to always build into the strategy is what kind of partnerships or feeder systems can I put in place to attract referrals to my organization so I can serve that target population. And there's marketing and social media, there's traditional media, there's brochures, there's fairs and outreach events, etc., that you can use to attract older adults or caregivers to your service. Now, one thing that's a little new in the in-home services front is that right now, in the last 3 years, and even previous to this funding cycle, we were funding home care assistance, which is a blended service that included homemaker and personal care. The state has asked all AAA to pull those services apart. So now that's why we have personal care and homemaker separate, and then you also have respite care. With respite care, we will allow for in-home respite care or out-of-home respite care. So you can elect to propose to not only do in-home respite care, but also it could be facility-based, where you have older adults or care recipients to be brought to your facility. So you can go either way. However, in doing that, you just have to make sure that the facility or the setting where the participant is meets all ADA requirements, etc.
Okay. Thank you very much for that explanation. And if I could just ask one final question in relation to this, which is there a set unit cost that's associated with services such as respite, homemaker, chore, and personal care? Or is that something that we are to propose? We're just wondering what that might have been at historically, or if there's anything you could share about the unit cost rates for those services.
That's for you to propose. We typically have a range that we look at. We have some historical data that allows us to sort of look at the high and the low and sort of have a range of what we're going to be looking for when we evaluate the budget. But that's something that you should look at all your costs, look at the market, and then make your best offer in terms of your unit cost rate.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions or? Okay.
Yeah.
You have Laura.
On the agenda, you have 5-star reward system incentive pay. I don't think you covered that.
Okay. One of the things that we're looking at as we transition to performance-based contracting over the next 3 years is how can we support traditional providers who are used to get that line item grant into more of a business model. So in doing that, we are trying to make sure that we make training available to help you look at unit costs. That's a great question that was just asked on the phone. So how do you create the best unit cost fee for service? Look at all of your costs so that it makes sense and it's cost effective, and that you can cover all your costs. So we're going to be providing some training on those topics. You know, key performance indicators, sustainability, those kinds of things. The other thing is we want to incentivize providers to meet their performance indicators and their goals. So what we're looking at is a 5-star rating system where we will encourage providers to meet their milestones and their goals or their indicators, and then on an annual basis look back and, you know, if you're a 5-star, you'll get a certain bonus. If you're 4-star, and that's just to encourage people to you know, pursue a higher standard of delivery services and things like that.
Linda from the HELM Act, if we add a program that might qualify for additional funding in year 2 or 3 of the RFP, can we submit documentation for consideration?
It depends on what is it something that's in our request for proposal or is not in a cover. It depends.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your answer, Ian. I'm sorry.
Well, if you're proposing to provide a service that is in our request for proposal, and you want to propose something that's unique and different, you can incorporate that into your proposal. But if it's something totally different, we can't pursue it because we can only look at what's in our multi-year plan, our 3-year plan. So the services that we have in RFP line up to the services in our 3-year plan.
Well, no,
now,
I meant
no,
I meant if we right now we're not set up for instance for the vision program, or I was very interested in the medication program, but we may bring somebody on board to add that program because it's part of this RFP 3 years. If we have that in place by a year from now, can we ask for additional funding to support that program?
Well, most likely, we're hoping, most likely we're going to identify someone who can provide those services. We're trying to get vendors in place who can provide the services as quickly as possible and not a year out. But that's something you can look at now and submit something. But there's going to be an expectation that you're going to be able to start moving in the fall to actually provide that service. Does that answer your question?
I guess it does.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to know, can you provide, so I was going into senior buildings, that was a way to do some marketing, but also we had a lot of homebound people. Can that be included in your proposal?
Sure, if your agency is able to serve homebound as well as active seniors who can actually get to a location, that's even better. Because one thing that we don't want wellness centers in particular to do is neglect to serve the homebound population. And one thing that Aida mentioned, one thing that's a positive that has come out of COVID-19 pandemic is the fact that we were able, through our virtual programming, to reach out to people who maybe wouldn't necessarily come to the wellness center. So, and there are also evidence-based classes that are targeted to the homebound population. So that is attractive, to have an array of services that attract active older adults and then individuals who may not actually be able to get to the center. And what's really interesting is there's a lot of technology that's being released that help people do that. Any other questions? Any additional questions in the chat? Okay. Well, thank you so much for being available. And I would like to thank the Detroit planning team, Aida and Gil and Krishara and Brian Michael, and others who really make this possible. Shannon, thank you so much, along with Chris and Deanna, who did a lot of heavy lifting with our request for proposal. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you for joining us on the call. Again, if you need more information, go to our homepage, and that's in the chat, and we'll be posting the frequently answered questions. Thank you so much. Have a good day.